I might grow a rat tail.
Enough. Only a rat tail?
Yeah, only a rat tail. Shave my entire head and just have a rat tail that then I could put a ponytail in. Consider it done. That's my goal for the next 2 years. All right. Hey, welcome to another episode of Off the Fence. We're going to talk about a way of life. I was taught by a coach years ago about looking at life, looking at leadership as though it's a table with 4 legs on it.
Better than a table with 3. So,
well, there's tables with 3, but they're usually smaller.
Can't always trust them.
True. So here's a question that leads into all this. Do you feel like you're more often investing or recovering? Investing or recovering? Here's a way to think about it. You could ask your doctor how to be healthy. And your doctor is going to be like, thank you for asking so much. All right. And your doctor would then give you probably a bullet point list of here's how to be healthy. And it would be very definitive. It would be very like, here's factual, this will work for you information. It's an easier answer. If you ask your doctor.
Oh, Ellie would have opinions too.
Ellie would have opinions. Ask your doctor, how do I fix my sickness? Most doctors will say, well, we'll try this and see if maybe it works. So it shows you a good example between investing in my health or recovering from sickness. And recovering from sickness is often more of a, and forgive me, a crapshoot, as they say.
I forgive you.
It's less complicated to be healthy than it is to recover from sickness. And what most of us do nowadays is we spend life recovering from the decisions that we've made.
Oh man, and that's not just in time or like physical exhaustion, that's also mental load.
Oh yeah.
Yesterday I picked up all the kids from school, and because when you say investing or recovering, I immediately think of parenting, because we're in a season where we have a kid in college, a kid in high school, and then we've got a 5th grader and a preschooler. And picking up those elementary kids, the 5th grader and the preschooler, about does me in every day.
It does.
Because emotionally, they're obviously still maturing. I'll give them that grace. But they come in just like tired and whiny and argumentative and hungry and demanding. And I have just gone through a whole day of what I would consider investing and being invested in at my job. And then I pick them up and it's like the wind just knocks out of me. I'm never emotionally prepared for it. And I feel like I spend the rest of the night trying to recover. So when I think about this, I love this conversation because it's not even just about like physical or schedule. It's every area of our life. Are we investing or recovering? So I'm just really pumped about this.
I've learned this I'm talking about my own personal health, where it's easier to stay in shape than it is to get into shape. Right?
Yes.
And it just is. And I like right now I'm for 6 weeks been doing something that I'm really, really enjoying, but it's really been really hard work getting into that way of life. But I know like probably 3 or 4 months down the road, maybe even longer, 6 months down the road, I'll be in it, and I won't near have the, oh no, how do I, I'm not near as sore. So we all know this to be true, that it's less complicated to be healthy than it is to recover from sickness. Colossians chapter 3, verse 23 says, work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. With that in context, like if I'm working for the Lord, and it's not about people, actually. I'm working for the Lord, and there's this willingness to do what the Lord says to do. It's an approach to life going, I want to be healthy. I want to do this right. I want to do this for God, rather than God, help me recover from the decisions of me not doing this for you and not serving you. And now I need you to help me recover, which the grace and mercy of God is wonderful, and he will help you recover. I'm just saying, maybe we get out of the cycle of recovery and go more towards health. And so what I was taught was the four-legged? The four-legged
The four-legged table.
I don't know.
The table with four legs.
You see how I can get distracted.
The table with four
The
legs.
four-legged table can give you a picture of how to be healthy as a family or healthy as a business or as a school.
Or just one person.
Frankly, one person, a set of friends.
Yeah.
So let me go through these four, and maybe this will be a good tool for some folks as they're processing. I don't want to live life just recovering. I want to invest. Well, leg one you can call the culture leg. And the culture leg is, and this, if this is in reference to where you work or the kind of family you got going on in your home or roommates, can you prove that your values are practiced? So let's get beyond that. There's values. Can you prove that the good, healthy values are actually being lived out? That's culture. Culture is not what you want to have happen. Not even, in a workplace, culture is not just a mission statement or phrases on a wall. Or in a new employee handbook. They are what is really being done. If you don't want to spend your life just recovering, you have to pay attention to your personal culture that you're creating, to what you're actually doing. It's exampled. Maybe that's a good word. What are you currently exampling? If someone were to observe you, if we watched a show about you, we would immediately begin to pick up, as the viewers of the show about Katy, we would begin to find out the culture that you're creating. And it's has nothing to do with what you don't like, I want this or I dream of. No. That what you're actually creating. If you don't want to spend your life just recovering, pay attention literally to what you're really, really, really doing. I want to look up, it came to mind, 1 Samuel chapter 2. So it says 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 23, or I'll do 22 through 23. Now, Eli was very old, but he was aware of what his sons were doing to the people of Israel. He was aware of what his sons were doing to the people of Israel. He knew, for instance, that his sons were seducing the young women who assisted at the entrance of the tabernacle. Dad knew the wrong that his sons were doing. Eli said to them, I have been hearing reports from all the people about the wicked things you are doing. Why do you keep sinning? You must stop, my sons. The reports I hear among the Lord's people are not good. You must stop, is what he says. So, interesting fact, though, if you keep reading, there's some reprimand that begins to play out. Verse 35, then this speaking to him, then I will raise up a faithful priest who will serve me and do what I desire. This is basically the words of the Lord. I will establish his family, and they will be priests to my anointed kings forever. What you may not know about how Eli was parenting, he notices he's not seeing behavior that needs to be happening. He says, you should stop. But that's about as far as he goes. He says you should stop, but he keeps allowing it. And there's a great example there in culture. You get the culture that you allow, not just the culture you say you should have. So right now, what are you allowing to happen around you? What are you giving permission to that's going to make you actually spend the rest of your life recovering? Because not because you haven't said something, you just haven't pushed and enforced and said, this is what we do.
I think
Culture's
of that
one of the legs.
In our house with culture, and we've talked about this before, where the love, give, go language is something that we use at our house.
Yep.
So unconditional love, irrational generosity, unwavering mission, even at our home. So how do we practice that when somebody hurts us or is, being mean to us, or whether that's in the context of our family or we're navigating something with one of our kids and a friend or us and somebody, walking those values out, I think is helping and has created a culture even just within our home.
100%.
Yeah.
And if you're ever talking with someone about how all of a sudden they're in a mess and they're trying to recover from it, because maybe someone made some decisions. I'm not talking about something you had no control over, but one of the greatest questions to ask is, so what were you allowing? Mm-hmm. What was allowed to come in mm-hmm. or to sit mm-hmm. there? What was allowed to happen over and over and over mm-hmm. again? What was allowed? Mm-hmm. And that gives you evidence of not to feel shame, but to tell you what kind of culture you got mm-hmm. and what kind of culture you're creating. Mm-hmm. That's one leg. Mm-hmm. A second leg is, after culture, is consistency. Mm-hmm. Not just what are you doing, but how often are you like on repeat? Is that mm-hmm. I always joke with the church, are you a one-hit wonder? Mm-hmm. Like, is it like, hey, that was great. I had this great moment. But that's like it.
I went for a walk today.
Yeah, cool.
I'll do my next one in a year.
It's like everyone would kind of laugh saying, yeah, I go to the gym once a year. I go once a year. Or once a month would even be mm-hmm. like what? Mm-hmm. Even once a week probably is like, what? Like consistency is equally a powerful leg mm-hmm. as the culture part. Mm-hmm. And so I was taught about what's called a consistency ratio. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be consistent, you need to learn how well you can be consistent. Mm-hmm. And the consistency ratio is this, is how long can you do well until you start to kind of taper off? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's have a little insight on the podcast. I stare at my wife and we do these podcasts. I'm aware of a look that she'll give me where I have then learned we are done with making episodes today.
Yeah. My brain.
Yep.
We were just joking about this because I feel like once I turn 40, my brain, I can't lie if I'm not in something anymore. And when I'm tired and I'm done talking or thinking, my brain just goes bloop.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
But there's a look though.
There's a look. Yeah. So I actually know regarding podcasts, your consistency ratio, mm-hmm. I actually know it fluctuates a little bit, mm-hmm. but the number of episodes that we could record in a day,
stretch,
and then you start to just kind of like, you know what, it's not a choice that you've made. No. It's just like, I'm going to start to go down a little bit. I
actually love that about myself. I didn't used to be that way. I just pushed through, and I love it now because I appreciate like the heads up from my brain.
I've learned with preaching, mm-hmm. there's a certain amount of weeks that I can preach in a row. And then something tips over where it's just not my body and my brain is just distracted. And anyways, so that's called a consistency mm-hmm. ratio. Learning what your consistency ratio. We learned it with vacation. Mm-hmm. We used to take a vacation each year and we did a week. Mm-hmm. And we learned that was not enough. We can't just take 1 week off mm-hmm. a year. And
well, even like by the end of that week, I think emotionally and mentally, and even physically, we were just starting to be able to like relax because life can often be like this. Yeah. And we were just starting to relax. And then you come back into it kind of half postured. Yeah.
So if you want good culture, that leg, but you want consistency in mm-hmm. your life, you need to pay attention to some very specific things about how well can you do life without mm-hmm. doing certain things and while you're doing certain things. Mm-hmm. So for example, how often do you need to work out? Mm-hmm. Well, some people say, I really need to work out this many times, mm-hmm. but others would have a different number. Mm-hmm. Or how often do you need to have alone time? Mm-hmm. Married couples, how often do you need to date? I remember like where it's like, your marriage will not work if you don't go on a date once a week. Well, I don't actually think that's true for every married couple. Mm-hmm. Some married couples, they need to go on a date every week. Mm-hmm. Some once a month. You and I have learned.
Or do like a trip.
So you and I have learned that you and I need a trip a year. You and I need one trip, and I'm not talking about extravagant
even if
trips.
I'm tagging along with you to a conference or something.
So like you and I need to get away mm-hmm. from our wonderful children in our wonderful normal setting mm-hmm. together mm-hmm. and do it completely independently of our normal. Mm-hmm. That's consistency ratio. Mm-hmm. And we've learned that if we don't do that in a year, you and I struggle with connection. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just an example. Evaluate your life. Look at the things that are important to you mm-hmm. and the things that you really enjoy and pay attention to. Just because you enjoy them doesn't mean that you're doing them as often or maybe you're doing them too much. But begin to look at not just if you don't want to spend your life recovering, when do you need a break?
And I think I think all of them require people, but I think consistency is the one that I would say if any of them needs the most community involvement, it would actually be that one, because even like we can work out on our own, but when you got people cheering you on or people waiting for you or you've committed to something, that consistency, often like having teammates, having people around you, even knowing what your goals are, I think it's paramount.
The conversation in your business needs to not only be, here's who we're going to be, and you open up and you do that for a few months, but how are we going to be consistent at who we are? It's not just culture.
Yes.
It's your part of your culture. That leg gets affected by your consistent leg, where how are we going to stay consistent? That involves a lot of different things, a longer podcast about breaks, about refueling, about how you treating your mind, your body, your soul, all that kind of stuff. It's just one of the legs, though, is what I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
Third, people that you've been talking about. One of your legs at living life healthy is the people that you have in your life. Like, who is your we? When you say we, when you say us, when you say my people, and we've done enough podcasts on this. I don't think we need to go after this a ton, but you need the right people in your life if you're going to stay out of a recovery cycle the rest of your life. You got to have, and I think it's, for me personally, it's a painful process I just think my brain in unhealthy ways that I don't have to involve people in a bunch of stuff. So I just think and solve but you need people to be around you to speak encouragement. I mean, there's that. Feels good when someone says something nice, but also people to be like, hey, that's no.
Yeah. Accountability for sure.
You can't be doing that, or hey, you've been saying something a certain way for a certain amount of time. Most of us, that's blind spots the most. You need people. If you're, again, running a business, one of your major barriers to being the kind of business you're supposed to be, or the school, is going to be the people that you're surrounding yourself with. That's why it's a crucial, one of the most difficult legs to pay attention to, because it's people. We don't want to hurt people, and people are not robots. So the fourth leg are spaces. It seems random. Spaces, like literally around you, the physical thing around you. What does your home do for you? What does your office do for you? What does your car do for you? Like literally paying attention to what music is playing, what's on the walls, how clean is it? I know this, for some people are going, what? This is important to being healthy? Yeah. We often neglect our spaces and think that we can take care of that later. It's why most people prefer being in a clean home versus one that is piled 3 feet deep with trash and other stuff, right? I know it's like an extreme, but in our home, we have a scripture verse displayed in every single room of our house, a different one.
Even whether it's been printed off of the printer,
Sure.
and it's on a magnet on the fridge, like whatever. It doesn't have to be fancy.
Sure.
Right?
No, definitely. So that's why, like, what does your space do for you? And I think we can think about this as a church. It's important to pay attention to these things. I'm not saying right now, hey, go repaint and buy all new furniture. I'm just saying that there's culture you need to pay attention to in your life. There's consistency and there's people, but there's also that just what's around you. What's it like? And I actually think Scripture speaks to doing things well, working hard, and a little bit that could leak into how are you taking care of and stewarding. Look what God said to Adam and Eve. Like, they're supposed to be stewards of this earth. Take care of it. Pay attention to the space. And I think this often gets neglected. And in fact, most people, though, will give attention to, people in their life. Or maybe some of us are loving this. Oh, good. I love interior decorating. I love, But people, places, culture, and consistency. And what I've learned, perhaps the one that slips the most, is a lack of defining culture and a lack of being consistent about it. most of our private conversations are about the people in our lives. I mean, we talk about the people in our lives. We watch TV shows that show us how to paint and redo stuff. And so there's a lot of that reminder. There's not near the reminder of, are you being consistent with what you believe to be true about life? I hope this helps. It's just something I was taught years ago. The 4 legs of leading well might be a way to say this. But the deeper one is, do you feel like you're investing or recovering? And if you're interested, and I want to live a life about investing, we've given you 4 legs.
To be intentional about.
To be intentional about investing in your life. It's really that simple.
For sure.
Hope this helps. Get off the fence on this. Don't spend the rest of your life just recovering. Until next time, we love you so much.
Bye, friends.